Hello? Can everyone hear me? Am I close enough to the mic or too far from the mic? I don't want to ruin everybody's eardrums. So I have the honor of being the person to introduce tonight's featured poet, Eddie Ramirez. Eddie is a good friend of mine and also spent 28 years in prison for crimes he did not commit. Eddie was exonerated in 2023 and has since committed himself to raising awareness about wrongful convictions and fighting for criminal justice reform. He uses art and poetry to present the power of community and collaboration. He is often asked, what makes success? To which his reply is always the same. Success is meaningless without the team. Eddie will come to the stage to perform a poem that he wrote for us this evening, and we are honored to have him here tonight. Eddie Ramirez.
Thank you very much. Before I start, I'd just like to ask that we all take a moment of silence to think about and reflect on not just the innocent people who have come out of prison, but those who still remain, those who might pass away and will never get to taste freedom the way I have. Thank you very much. I do that because too often we get caught up kind of celebrating the moment, celebrating the now. And it's a great feeling. I have told people that people often say to me, oh, it must be great to be here with your family. And it is. It's wonderful to be with my family. It's wonderful to get this opportunity. It's wonderful to see my brothers. I love all that. But those who know me best and those who see me often can tell you, not a day goes by that I don't think about my brothers in prison. Not a day goes by that I don't think about Spell, who I have been building with since I was a teenager, 16 years old. And so it's a great honor to be here, to be delivering this presentation to you in his memory. And I can only hope that one day soon he's here with us to deliver a similar presentation, not only on his own behalf, but perhaps on the behalf of someone else who's innocent in prison who deserves to be out. So one of my favorite poets, Martin Espada, once wrote a poem in which he said that if the abolition of slave manacles began as a vision of hands without manacles, then this is the year. I say, let this be the year let this be the year. Oh my God, I'm so sorry, y'all. Where Triz at? Where Triz at? Hey Triz, you here? You still there? You see, it happens. It happens. Let this be the year. Let the light shine. Oh, my stars. I'm so sorry, y'all. I'm blanking. I'm going to pull out my phone, which is something I don't usually do. I wish ice cream would make it a whole lot better. Just give me 1 second, y'all. All right. Oh, yeah, okay. Thank you so much for bearing with me, y'all. Let this be the year that keeps warm the feet of those who march tirelessly toward freedom. Let the light of day shine magnificently on the hearts of those who boldly proclaim their solidarity with justice. Make still the violent winds of oppression so that the call for human dignity can be heard in the valley and upon the hill. Let this be the year that fear is forfeited and bravery is born, nourished on an unwavering desire to be more than the huddled masses forgotten in the cold machinery of politics. Let the definitions of society and civility be reestablished to include all persons as mothers, fathers, brothers, sisters, sons, daughters, friends, and lovers whose consent is sacred to the religiosity of democracy. Let this be the year to come up. Let every prison wall and tower be overcome by the steel will of deconstruction workers. Let every belly that aches with hunger find satisfaction in the sweet bread of angels. and let every mind that wanders in the darkness of indifference find guidance in the understanding hands of love. Thank you very much.
Let's give another round of applause for Eddie Ramirez. So, Eddie, I'm not even going to attempt that. I'm just going to start reading. And I will be continuing to read throughout this presentation. First of all, I'd like to thank the Barnes for hosting us. Thanks to Tom Collins and the amazing event team at the Barnes who helped us put this evening together. As we gather at this esteemed cultural institution, I want to also acknowledge just how deeply tied to this work this place is. The Barnes now sits on the former site of the Youth Study Center, a children's correctional facility which operated here from 1952 to 2008. We are in the company and presence of the many children and families that were torn apart on this very site. And I'd like to take a moment to remember those kids, now grown, many of whom are in the audience today. We must not forget that many of these men were sentenced as children in Philadelphia, in courtrooms to die in prisons, in the city in which, in addition to inventing prisons, also found a way to sentence the most children to life without parole in the world. As we gather here in Philadelphia, the birthplace of this nation, a day after a debate between two people vying to lead this country, one felon and one prosecutor. This background reminds us how deeply intertwined this history of prisons is with the landscapes that surrounds us. Walnut Street Jail was built here in Philadelphia in 1776. 14 years later, in 1790, it expanded to include the nation's first prison, shaped by Quaker ideas of penal reform. That prison's successor, Eastern State Penitentiary, was built in 1821, just a half a mile from where we now sit. Eastern State was eventually replaced by SCI Graterford, the prison we gather to tell the story of here today. Built in 1928, Graterford's creation was directly tied to the advocacy of Albert Fleischer, president of Eastern's Board of Trustees. He envisioned Graterford as a place removed from the crowded and confined misery of Eastern State, a cause his daughter, Susan Roberts, later continued with her support of initiatives like Mural Arts to better the lives of the men of Graterford. Her son, Brian Roberts, is the current CEO of Comcast, which this auditorium is named after. Indeed, part of the story of Graterford is one of resilience, where many of those who lived there found a way to make their lives better. These men found a way because of Albert's design, their loved ones' presence, their own drive, and the unique community they nurtured and created at SCI Graterford. Graterford was just far enough from the DOC headquarters to have some autonomy, while still being close enough to Philadelphia to maintain strong ties to the city. This rare positioning placed Graterford in a Goldilocks zone, similar to the astronomical phenomenon we can observe in our skies. The Goldilocks zone describes a special band in outer space where a planet is close enough, yet far enough away from a star for life to thrive. At Graterford, we were close enough to the resources of the city to mobilize without burning up under the direct scrutiny of the DOC. There was a trauma study, a bachelor's program, a music program, a fully functioning masjid at Graterford, things that couldn't even be imagined at other prisons further from the city. My friend James Yahya Huff used to call it a shady spot in hell. Graterford's proximity to Philadelphia, which was only 30 miles away, also shaped its opportunities. As America's poorest big city with a significant black population, Philadelphia made Graterford an important stop for many academics, religious groups, advocates, and politicians, and artists who wanted to work at the intersection of social change and prison reform. That didn't exist at any other prison in Pennsylvania. The benefits of these connections can still be seen in the career paths of many Graterford alums. 3 years after Martin Luther King Jr.'s death and the passage of the Fair Housing Act, the site, which will become the 5th largest lodging place of incarcerated people in the nation, transferred to black leadership. In 1971, Robert L. Johnson took the reins, and Graterford started to look different. We have a daughter here with us today who I'd like to acknowledge. The staff turned increasingly browner, mirroring the demographics of the prison, whereby 1976, non-whites constituted 80% of Graterford's population. The same ties that often bonded the families and their loved ones on the inside now bonded them to the staff at Graterford, who were sometimes the relatives of the very people they were charged with securing. This fundamentally changed the relationships between incarcerated people and the staff. The antagonism that traditionally stirred up conflict between the two groups presented itself differently at Graterford. It became less us and them and more us and us. At its height, Graterford boasted a main yard, 3 side yards, a senior yard, a field house, 6 cafeterias, a commissary, a mosque, 3 visiting rooms, 400 cells on some blocks, over 3,000 incarcerated individuals and hundreds of guards, countless programs, a bachelor's degree program, a boxing program, a synagogue, a chapel that included native services, and countless other prison organizations. The long blocks were able to host numerous poker and pinochle games, and even Dungeons and Dragons game or two. They had a day room where painters could hold a table to get the brushstroke just right without having to worry about a card player to their left shaking the table just as they were putting the finishing touches on a customer's smile. There were tables for Talim, Spanish classes, band practice, electronic repair, and a flea market that sold everything you could imagine. One artist named Spell even had his own personal studio in an old band room. But all that didn't come without a cost. Abandoning the panopticon surveillance-minded construction that made its predecessor Eastern, a place that could be more easily surveilled, Graterford's long blocks jutting off a central hallway made it a place where anything and everything could and did happen. Graterford was what some people like to call the streets. Things you wouldn't normally associate with prison went on there all the time. There was a farm where incarcerated people were horseback, an outside housing unit that allowed lifers to live outside the wall and have jobs in the community, a cavernous auditorium that hosted dignitaries like Sonia Sanchez, Michelle Alexander, Cornel West, a group of strippers, Prodigy from Mobb Deep, the Isley Brothers, and more. But Graterford's biggest boast was its culture. That was perhaps the main beneficiary of Graterford's proximity to Philadelphia. I have men like Luis Suave Gonzalez and James Yahya Huff to thank for this historical, cultural, and political grounding of this work. Men who during their time at Graterford became actively involved in the civic, artistic, and political underpinnings of a place that was as much a prison as an additional Philadelphia neighborhood. Both would go on to amazing second acts, with Suave winning a Pulitzer Prize. Suave is right here. Congratulations. And Yahya becoming the inaugural artist in residence at the Philadelphia District Attorney's Office. But they weren't Graterford's only distinguished alumni. Bernard Hopkins took his first step toward a boxing career at Graterford and went on to fight all over the world. And men like Ghani and Nell locked up as kids, who went on to work for an organization advocating for a change in the U.S. legal system's treatment of incarcerated children. Others like Felix Rosado have gone on to teach a generation of new leaders enrolled in the nation's colleges and universities. And still others like Salim Holbrook, who brought the term death by incarceration, a renaming of life without parole and a concept originating at Graterford, to Geneva, where he helped hold the United States accountable for this shadowy practice of state-sanctioned murder. As I was serving my sentence, I could clearly see that many of the men around me were destined for greatness, but the road there was anything but smooth. All but one of the men I have named here were juvenile lifers and have collectively over 100 years behind bars. What's amazing is that all of these accomplishments have come in the 6 years since their release. Some of these folks are on our Graterford Archive Advisory Board, and you will see them on stage here today. But they represent just a sample of the men who came out of Graterford and the PADOC as a whole, who have gone on to do amazing things. I want to take a moment to remember Marco Maldonado, a giant among our diaspora, one-time leader of the Villanova Alumni Chapter, Islamic scholar and law librarian, who passed in the last year as he continued his legal work at Phillips Black Law Firm after successfully winning his own freedom from a wrongful conviction. Marco, or Mu, as we called him, was a Puerto Rican man who was part of a huge Latin diaspora at Graterford. Mu was also an honorary member of the Latin American Cultural Exchange Organization, or LACEO. Suave was the former president, which he chronicles in his definitive work of Graterford History, A History of Organizations at Graterford State Prison. LACEO was a pioneer in giving back to the communities its members came from. Through its education over incarceration scholarship, one of the first of its kind in PA state prisons, the group gave scholarships averaging $1,100 to the kids of incarcerated parents. All of the money was raised in Graterford from the men who lived there. We'd also love to acknowledge and honor the men of the Graterford diaspora who have since passed at SCI Phoenix, especially during the COVID pandemic. Here we remember Katon, Baldy, Eddie Best, Gary Kretschmar, and Bruce Norris, whose tragic death came as he waited for the governor's office to sign off on the commutation that was already approved and would have sent him home after 44 years inside. Bruce's exemplary record of achievements, which includes his steadfast dedication to the sale of Girl Scout cookies to benefit local troops, and earning his bachelor's degree from Villanova University, which for over 50 years has had the distinction of running one of the longest continual degree-granting programs for incarcerated people in the U.S. Bruce's death launched what was to be a small resurgence in the Pennsylvania commutation process. Immediately following his death, several men were freed, many of them Graterford alum, who were able to dominate the ranks of commuted men, largely because of the level and access to programs, groups, and opportunities at Graterford. Showed how a person can still endeavor to change even beyond bars. This evening, we want to provide a small glimpse into the Graterford Archive and the many voices that make it up. We will hear stories of community, building, mentorship, volunteering, visiting, and learning to become an artist in Graterford. This work would not be possible without a few special people. Gus Stadler of the Hereford Center, who first brought the idea of the archive to Haverford College after I shared the importance of preserving its history with him during our many conversations. The Mellon Foundation, who is funding this work. Thank you. Trailblazers like the Mural Arts and Villanova University, who worked in Graterford for years, amplifying the voices of those who lived there, and my mother. Margaret Robertson, a lawyer who saw her son being swallowed up by the criminal justice system and said no. She supported me, encouraged me to continue my education, learn from those around me, and live as if life wasn't over when the gate closed. She understood that even if I was in a sunny spot in hell, it was my duty to bask in that light and reflect it on all those I could. Through this work, we will make sure that the achievements of the men of Graterford will not remain in the dark. I'm excited to share this work with you and introduce 3 men I had the pleasure of meeting inside. All of these men were actively involved in the programming, culture, and civics and educational arenas in the space. They are part of a long lineage of men who created and embodied the spirit of what we now know Graterford to have been, a flawed but transformational space. And each will speak to what the community of Graterford meant to them. Here are former presidents of the NAACP Graterford chapter, Don Ike Jones, Donnell Nell Drinks, and published author, and Greater Freedom Think Tank member, Terrell Woolfolk. So I'd just like to start by asking, who are some of the men that you remember at Graterford?
One person in particular always come to mind when I'm asked that question. A gentleman named Gary Bates. Gary Bates been locked up now close to 50 years. You know, he's one of the reasons why I'm here today. You know, he's seen me and my brother Donnell, you know, striving to better ourselves and then carve out a space for young guys inside the institution. Because believe it or not, we was locked out of everything. Older guys had everything on lock. We wasn't let in. So Gary Bates in his wisdom was like, I'm going to step back for NAACP and allow y'all to take over. So Donnell became president, I was his vice president, and Gary Bates was our advisor. You know, we sat down and created like a 10-year plan on what we wanted to do. You know, and that plan came to fruition. You know, so when you ask me who I remember, it's always Gary Bates. You know, because I think without him, anything I accomplished wouldn't have been possible.
I remember a lot of people, but most of the people that I want to name are the people who are no longer with us. Old head Lonnie. I remember coming through the prison, just being a 22-year-old, and Lonnie having a group of us at a table and just talking to us, and he started crying. I was like, well, I ain't never seen no grown gangster cry before. And he was bawling and he was, you know, and I can't even remember what he said, but the feeling that I still have from the conversation that we was having with him was, I wish I could have caught y'all before y'all made the decisions that y'all made to brought y'all here. It's a few guys, because I was working in a hospice before I came home. And so a lot of the older guys who, you know, kind of watched us grow up, you know, they start getting sick. And they start coming down to the infirmary with, you know, terminal illnesses, and I had to sit with them and, you know, hold their hand sometime. And it was just a difficult thing, at least for me, initially, because it was a selfish thing. Because I was, in those times sitting with those older guys, I kind of like thought about how I was feeling. Like, this ain't a good feeling, sitting around these people who taught you and kind of groomed you. It wasn't a real good feeling. But I never forget, one day I was sitting with this guy, and we wasn't really talking. We was just sitting in the room, and he turned to me, and he was like, hey, man, thank you. And I was like, for what? He said, for just being here. Because nobody wants to die by themselves. And so at that point, I kind of knew, right? I'm like, okay, now I get it. It ain't really just about me and how I feel. It's about bringing something to somebody that really needs it in that moment. And so I just wanted to lift up like all the old heads. And my mind is kind of blanking right now, and I feel terrible that I can't even really remember the names. But it was so many guys that I sat with, so many guys, older guys that have passed away that are no longer with us, and I just wanted to lift those guys up.
Appreciate you. I guess my next question would be, tell me about the culture of Graterford. What made it special? What made it different?
I'll take that. I know. What made Graterford unique was the commonality that we all found in each other. And it's funny because I found this out on the front end and confirmed it on the back end. And what I mean by that is, in Graterford, it was a commonality of we all know that we are being oppressed. We all knew it. And no matter what we indulged in as far as sports or education or entertainment, painting, we all knew that. And that commonality bonded us. I couldn't articulate on the front end, but as I got transferred later on in my incarceration, transferred later on in my incarceration and was in other places, this would not work, I realized that's what it was, because everywhere else is so separated, whether it's by geographical, race, ideologies. Graterford, we found the commonality, and all those other things became secondary. The oppressive nature of the environment and all of us looking for some level of happiness. And not being naive, not making Graterford this utopia either. We're not naive about that. It was just finding a way to turn scraps into soul food. And so that, to me, that was the community, and we built off of that. And we found that common bond, and that's why anybody that's out here that's doing some level of success or thriving, there's a connection prior to. And we never knew and spoke about times and sentences. It was just we would overlap in classrooms, we overlap in auditorium at meetings, we overlap in positive environments in that negative space. So it's the commonality that created the culture in the community.
Thank you for that.
Kel, let me add something to that, Kel. And also, I think a big part of it was we had great superintendents who understood that, you know, they had to give us some level of control inside institutions. Some things, you know, that happened there wouldn't happen nowhere else. You know, we had the auditorium, which was like a sacred place. Like that was like the hub where everybody went to study, learn, and build together. You know, and the superintendents through the years made sure it stayed that way. You know, and I think that I actually know that Vaughn handpicked his successor, Guglielmo. Guglielmo handpicked Mike Ramirez as his successor to make sure the Graterford State culture stayed intact, because so many positive things was happening there. So I think without those superintendents, you know, as we see now in Phoenix, you know, things wouldn't happen the way they did.
Yeah, if I could add to that, it was a commonality. It was the superintendents, but it was also proximity. I think you touched on that. But more importantly, I think more important than all of that, it was a large population. So it was more of people in prison who wanted to do things different. It was more of us. And so because we had the space to do some of the things that we did, we was able to do it. You know what I mean? Because, and I'm thinking like population-wise as opposed to other prisons, the population ain't that big. You ain't allowed to do some of the stuff that we were allowed to do. And so those prisons wouldn't reflect that. And there's a racial element that exists that kind of separated Graterford from all those other prisons. All those other prisons are located in the deep recesses of Pennsylvania. And it was terrible, like the racial angst that existed. And that was one of the reasons why Graterford was able to be able to be, because of the proximity to the city.
Yeah. Well, I wish I could speak to you all this whole evening. Thank you all for grounding us in what it meant to be at Graterford and what the space meant to you all and your development as men. Next, I would like to transition and introduce Wynn Eakins, who will be introducing a panel about the women of the Graterford diaspora and how they have influenced, affected, and modified this space. Thank you.
Okay, can everyone, actually I know you can hear me because I can hear that. Hi everyone, my name is Wynn Eakins. Thank you for the intro, Akil. Yes, I'm the community archivist for this wonderful project. It's so nice to meet a lot of you in person finally. We've had a lot of Zoom meetings, so thank you to everyone truly for coming out. I would like to welcome to the stage our three speakers for tonight. I'll start with an introduction of B.L. Sherrill, a talented rapper, songwriter, and producer, as well as the co-executive director of Free Your Records, which is the first nonprofit label for currently and formerly incarcerated artists. Her critically Her critically acclaimed debut album, Asada Troy, reflects her personal journey from growing up during the crack epidemic in 1990s Philadelphia to overcoming incarceration, and she now uses her music and activism to uplift her community. Next, I'd like to welcome to the stage Stephanie D. Keene, a Philadelphia-based educator, creator, and organizer with over 20 years of experience organizing communities around social justice issues. Thank you. She is dedicated to building a more compassionate world while nurturing community growth, and in her free time, she enjoys reading, wellness, and the joys of motherhood. And last but certainly not least, I would like to welcome Margaret Robertson to the stage. She's a legal... Yes, let's give her a round of applause. Margaret is a legal advocate and mother focused on social justice, working with organizations like the ACLU Court Bail Program, Participatory Defense Hub, and the Center for Returning Citizens to uplift marginalized voices impacted by the criminal justice system. Her connections to Graterford began with a visit in 1973 and deepened when her son served a sentence there from 2012 to 2018, during which visits became a regular part of her family's life. And so I'm going to be asking you all a few questions. I'm going to move over here. Okay, this is on. I wanted to start off, BL, asking you, how do you use your platform to uplift the voices of incarcerated women, and how does art help them reconnect with their communities?
Okay, great question, Wynn. Hi, everybody. Well, there's a lot of ways. I mean, I'm a formerly incarcerated person myself, so with that being said, I got a lot of stock in, actually changing some of these things. And just recently, HB 900, which was the Dignity Act bill for women, was passed in December. We did a lot of mobilizing around that, and eventually the bill did get passed. It got kind of gutted, but it did get passed, and some of the things that changed were unlimited sanitary napkins for women and trans men and anybody, in the women's prison. Trauma-informed care for the guards, mandatory trauma-informed care. Also restricting solitary confinement for pregnant people or postpartum people in the women's prison. And so there were some really great things that got passed, and now we are trying to make sure that it's implemented and informing, because it's one thing for something to be a law, it's another thing for it to actually be enforced. So in order for that to happen, we have to educate the people, that these are your rights, these are your new rights, and this is how you would go about that. So that's what we're doing now. And I've actually been notating or documenting this whole process. I actually think that's where I met you at, too, when we were mobilizing for that bill. But I'm documenting that process, and I'm dropping a visual EP with an activist by the name of Medusa. Some of you may know Black Rat Medusa. Yeah, we're doing a collaboration around that bill getting passed, and, how do you go about mobilizing and changing and, making things law. Like, we actually have the power, and, also formerly incarcerated people, we the only people that know the judges and the DAs, and so when we vote that block, we know who we talking about. Oh, you come into jail, they like, oh, this person, his daughter OD, you got a drug case, up, take the deal, or whatever, because they have a somewhat familiarity with some of those, political positions. We have more knowledge than just a layman person. So just trying to, educate our people that we do indeed have the political power. It's just about mobilizing. So that's the answer to the first question. So I try to do it, try to support organizers in the field of policy and stuff like that. And I also then turn it into entertainment, because I think that that's what America loves, and that's what we're about. So the second part of your question is, the first time I've ever seen something change in the women's prisons was in 2014. I did a TEDx. And I performed with my band, and there was a group called the Lady Lifers. And the Lady Lifers, my mentor, Miss Naomi, some of y'all might know Miss Naomi, I'm sure some of y'all know her. She and the choir did a song called This Is Not My Home. And they sung this song about, them just being mothers, grandmothers, daughters. And they specifically said in the song, word to the gentleman that was talking earlier, I don't want to die alone. Nobody wants to die alone. And while they were singing this song, Brenda Watkins sung lead, actually, not Miss Naomi. But while they were singing this song, I heard the senators and the politicians in the crowd physically gasping. Like it was sounding like they were getting punched or stabbed. Like it was like, because after they sung, they then said their name, their number, and how long they were in prison. And when they started saying, my name is Naomi Brown Wilson, 006824, I've served 40 years in prison. This is not my home. And everybody wrote, back to back. And you can hear the physical gasp of people because they never really understood what life in prison looked like until they was actually just looking at it, right? And in 1984, between 1984 and 2014, that was the 2 women were commuted in that span of time. That's 30 years. That number jumped over 400% after that performance, just through art, just through a song, just from, a shared humanity. And I believe that, because America, again, we love to be entertained, we love to be distracted, we are fanatics about music, sports, there's only a couple of things that this whole country really digests. And that's the reason why I chose music as my medium, because I feel like it's the easiest way to change hearts and minds. And that was the first time that I ever seen a literal change in the women's diaspora of Pennsylvania, and it was through a song, This Is Not My Home. So shout out to the Lady Lifers who are change makers and legends and my mentors and saved my life as well. So, yes.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And I think just thinking about, how that mobilization work really actualizes itself, ties in a lot to, I think, the work that you do, Stephanie, and the question that I have for you, which is how your local social justice work, and of course tying it back to Greaterford, with the Greaterford think tank, how that's connected you to national and even global struggles and histories, and you and, of course, other women.
That's a really good question. Thank you. I think it's because all of the work is connected, right? The introduction that Akil shared that was wonderfully written spoke to the interconnectedness and the things that I think we don't think about enough in terms of land, in terms of movements, in terms of cities and infrastructure and employment. And, a lot of times we talk about prisons and other carceral spaces being built intentionally in spaces where, that's the job. That space is the job in the town. And so, the folks that are in those spaces by design end up living in the prison or working at the prison, right? That's not happenstance. And so I think the interconnectedness is what was your question? How the work,
Next to local and other global struggles.
right. It's not, no prison is like a local happening. It's all connected internationally. It's all connected globally. And so naturally, by nature, any work that you're doing in or related to a prison is connected to these global struggles. The importance is whether or not you know that. The importance is whether or not that information is shared. And I think about the work that I have been able to do through what was formerly known as the Greaterford Think Tank is now known as the Greater Freedom Think Tank. And the historians within that group. Akil mentioned Marco Maldonado, who was one of the greatest scholars of history that I know. I think about Reem Cotton, who was also so you think about people who, in spite of incarceration, are studying and are learning and are teaching. Both other people who are incarcerated and also people who, like me, are coming through the prison, making these connections through social justice movements. And so the part that is important is the education, because the struggle will be interconnected. It's just a matter of whether or not we're able to know that. And in thinking about Ms. Robertson, when you mentioned in her intro going into the prison, back in the 70s, there is a lineage of women going, and unfortunately, the access is more likely to be in spaces where men are. It's a whole other conversation that we've had before about access that incarcerated women just don't get as much to programs. But there's a long lineage of women going into these spaces and making these connections, both in ways that are like structural and intentionally about social justice, but also in ways that are just about connection and relationship. And I think that's really what I wanted to highlight there.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And I think you already did the segue, because this obviously relates so much to your work, Ms. Margaret. But the question I have for you is, what is your experience with Graterford? And, can you tell us more about how women of the Graterford diaspora connect with each other, support each other, and, of course, support folks inside?
My experience as a Kill said, I was working in South Philly. I worked and walked to in town, and I passed the Bellevue, and there was an exhibit there. An artist was exhibiting. He invited me to come visit. I went to visit. The thing that was interesting was that there was a Greyhound bus that took you out to Graterford. It was very different and very comfortable. Very different from what happened later. But in terms of the women, my experience was just visiting Akil and on the buses on Saturdays, and you go early and you stay until 3 o'clock and come back, and there was a lot of emotion on that bus. Sometimes people were angry because something happened in the visiting room, and there would be women and children there. Not a lot of conversation. I guess some people knew each other, but I think a lot of people were spending time in their heads, reliving what happened, and sometimes they were very quiet. Sometimes they were very sad. My other experience, I guess, would be in the visiting room, where people would sometimes share food, share information. Lots of women, and you wonder, these people must have some male relatives, but they did not feel comfortable, I guess, coming, and it was primarily a women's space, which was sad, but that's my experience.
Thank you. And we do have a few more minutes, but I remember in one of our earlier conversations too, maybe with all of us actually, you all spoke to some of the unique challenges too that women experience doing visits and doing the support work, but with dress codes, making, the difficulties of bringing families, just travel. I'm wondering if anyone wants to speak to that these last few minutes we have.
My experience was that I just remember a family day and a 4-year-old who was not allowed to go in because her clothes were they were knit and they were too fitted. And I thought, really? This is crazy. But stores in the area got a lot of business from people who came to visit and found that was unacceptable. I used to wonder, why don't you send letters out to families saying what the rules are? Because so many people spent money coming on visits only to find, oh, you can't wear that. And, there were so many underwires in the ladies' room. You could have had you could use it for a factory. It was crazy. People were just ripping up these very expensive undergarments because you're not allowed in. Just tell them. And I found, because I was older, that my treatment was a lot better. than younger women who were really, I thought, mistreated in terms of the searches. That's part of my experience. That, you know, it was unnecessarily hard and disrespectful.
Thank you all for just contributing your thoughts, experiences, and your beautiful work. That's very difficult and important work. So thank you all. We are going to transition to the next part of our program. So bear with us as we do some mic changes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Please come back in 10 minutes. 10 minutes.
Hey, can you all hear me? Can everybody hear me? Can you hear me, bro? All right. So we have a very fortuitous call this evening. Spell, the featured artist this evening, just gave us a call. So we're going to give him a few moments to speak. So can we have silence just so we can hear Spell? Hey, can you say something, please?
Hey.
Can you hear everybody?
Yes.
All right.
Yes. Much love. I just want to thank everybody. This was by surprise. I was just.
This is a call from Pennsylvania State Correctional Institution, Dallas. This call is subject to recording and monitoring.
I just want to thank everybody for coming out. I'm just speechless. I mean, everybody's telling me so far everything is going great. Just so many people to thank. I just want to say I love you all. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I really appreciate this. I'm overwhelmed right now. Just thinking of everything that is going on and everybody that's come out for support. I just really appreciate everyone attending. And you guys have a great night. And we'll be back. We'll definitely be back.
Love you, bro. Appreciate you.
Love you, man. Love you.
Talk soon. It's always good to hear from the people this work really touches. Now I'd like to introduce Samara Gayev, Artistic Director of the Truth Worker Theaters Company, to introduce a performance. Samara.
Thank you all so much. My name is Samara Gayev, and it is such an honor to be here, truly, and for Spell to be with us, and for all of you who are here to be with us, and all of those whose shoulders we're standing on. I'm the founder and artistic director of Truthworker Theater Company. We're about 11 years old, and we are a social justice hip-hop theater company that started off, when I would say, for young people directly impacted by mass incarceration, with loved ones currently or formerly incarcerated, and we create all original devised theater, meaning everything you see on stage is devised, developed, created, and performed by the artist before you, and directly impacted by the stories that we're talking about. Part of my pedagogy is not to shuffle people in and out of programs in order to appease philanthropists, and instead to develop long-term sustainable relationships. So many of the people on stage, even here right now, I have been working with for 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 years. So I don't know if I can call y'all young people. You're still younger than me. But, you know, who was then 15 is now 26. And we're continuing to develop together, create together, tour together. What I want to share about this particular project briefly before introducing the company is that all of our work interrogates the prison industrial complex and the epidemic of mass incarceration in this country. Our most recent work is a collaboration with Jarvis J. Masters, an innocent man on death row in San Quentin who's been there as long as I've been alive, 43 years, 23 consecutively in solitary confinement. We work directly with him to tell his life story, in addition to other work that we've done. And Elizabeth and Akil and Roberta, and we've been working and talking, and I heard about this project, and to be offered the opportunity to work directly with Spell to begin to tell his story. So he was in rehearsal with us on Zoom, watching, listening, sharing, talking about memories and anecdotes. We would turn them into the art that you're going to see now. This was a short turnaround for a short piece. We met 6 times to develop what you're going to see right now over the last period of a couple of weeks. And our hope is to be able to bring it into a fuller production. So this is a glimpse and a taste of a work in progress that is beginning to peel away the layers of the onion to honor and tell Spell's story and bring him in juxtaposition with Jarvis, who you'll catch a glimpse of theatrically, because we also found it powerful and synchronistic that the book, Future Present, that we're also honoring here, Jarvis and I wrote a piece together that's published there, and we're right beside Spell's piece. So we thought, we're together in the book, let's get together on the stage, and let's bring our processes together also so we can continue to tell these stories and kind of shift the paradigm of who holds the mic and whose stories are being told and how they're told. So that is the work that I try to do as a director, is to step back as much as possible and make sure that the platforms are offered to the right people. So bear with me as I awkwardly transition to the tech booth to run the show. Thank you.
Amigos míos, está planteada una lucha. En el tablero no estamos los yanquis y los puertorriqueños solos. En el tablero está todo el hemisferio de América. En el tablero, los poderes coloniales, encabezados por los Estados Unidos, portavoz de la esclavitud en el mundo, y los poderes no coloniales.
How did I end up here? Spell. I didn't do this.
You're under arrest for the murder of Martin Brill.
I didn't do this.
Police are looking for the suspect in a deadly shooting of a man in Philly last night.
How did I end up here?
Witnesses say one of the shooters was a white male.
I'm Puerto Rican.
Wait till they get a hold of you, white boy.
Soy Boricua.
You're gonna be somebody's bitch when you get upstate.
Don't I get a lineup?
They're gonna bury you under the prison.
Spell.
You're under arrest for the murder of Martin Brill.
You're gonna be somebody's bitch when you get upstate.
I didn't do this.
Wait till they get a hold of you, white boy.
You're under arrest for the murder of Martin Brill. Wait till they get a hold of you, white boy.
I didn't do
They're
this.
gonna be somebody's bitch when you get upstate.
They're gonna bury you.
How did I end up here?
You're gonna be somebody's bitch when you get upstate.
I didn't do this.
Spell.
Spell. Wait till they get a hold of you, white boy. You're under arrest for the murder of Martin Brill.
You're under arrest for the murder of Martin Brill.
Witnesses say one of the shooters was a white male.
You know you didn't do this.
Spell. You're under arrest for the murder of Martin Brill.
No, I didn't
Strip,
do any-
white boy.
I'm Puerto Rican.
Here, the sun will not stretch past barbed wire and security cameras.
There is no grass struggling through asphalt.
Only steel bars and stolen strength.
This is where dreams come to die.
It is easy to be forgotten here. A number in an orange suit.
A mistake. A menace.
I don't get a lineup?
In the shadows of white picket fence dreams, you are a sickness.
A blister.
A bruise.
3/5 of a memory.
Sleep is never sleep. But fear is always fear.
Embrace your shackles. Become the bars that cage you in, young animal.
For this is our life now. We're gonna die in here.
I didn't do this. I didn't do this.
For here, the sun will not stretch past barbed wire and security cameras.
Thank you for using security. You may start the conversation now.
Release me.
Whoa, 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 whoa.
You know you didn't do this. It's crazy because mommy was always lecturing me about staying out of trouble. She had enough to deal with, making sure we had food and a roof over our heads. She'd always tell me, dime con quien tú andas, y yo te digo quien tú eres. Tell me who your friends are and I'll tell you who you are. She wasn't wrong though, but telling a teen in the 80s to stay out of trouble was like asking me not to breathe. Dime con quien tú andas, y yo te digo quien tú eres. Remembering joy behind closed doors, not knowing what awaits you. The outside world can be cruel and people can be hateful. Dime con quien tú andas, y yo te digo quien tú eres. Well, I must have made friends in the garden of snakes, ma. Because how else would I have ended up in this place? I remember it like it was yesterday. Party girl wanted your boy bad and damn, she was fine. Tell me who your friends are and I'll tell you all the lies. It was 1990. I was 22 and I met this guy, ASC. He heard of me from around the way and invited me to his party. Shit, I'm down. Dancing, drinking, women. Wish I would have paid more attention. Tell me who your friends are and I'll tell you your conditions. It was supposed to be fun, simply just a good time. But tell me who your friends are and I'll read to you your crimes. Unbeknownst to me, a man's life was about to end. And using me as a scapegoat always seemed to be the plan. No worries. I got the truth. I got my alibi. But who would have thought that that party girl would refuse to testify? Tell me who your friends are and it'll tell me about you. It wasn't always like that though. I had good people too. About 15 years old, I joined this dance crew, the Furious Rockers. Man, I felt like the shit. Finally, this misidentified Puerto Rican white boy would be labeled legit.
Unprecedented ruler of the lyrical land. Editorial, finest, royal highness, or ghetto. Beat detonator, apex is my level. Supreme vocalist, call me the new sire. Data translator, E-song will chart higher. Stunning spectators with the lyrical effect. Crown king of commentary, yeah, the language is wet. Kick the ball.
I need your help.
This call is being monitored and recorded.
All I need is a minute.
You have 60 seconds remaining.
I open my palms to the sky. Though it may seem I have surrendered to human hopelessness, that shall not despair me.
Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil, for you are with me.
For life needs no more despair, I pray, to turn a situation as bad as mine into an opportunity to be of some benefit.
You have 30 seconds remaining.
Surely your goodness and your love will follow me all the days of my life.
To transcend my present circumstances, to transform everything around me into something almost radiant.
And I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Yet at times, I can't believe I'm in here. I've come so far.
I've learned so much.
This place has been the majority of my life,
but I found purpose. Meditation, my mind seeping through the cracks of these walls.
It's more than my religion. It is my survival. Faith, prayer, compassion. I realized that
other than being here, I'm happy being me. The words that I've painted to picture the sun, the cool breeze welcoming me with open arms. Find your purpose through a life of art. And I'm truly happy being me.
When I get out, I want to find space, sunlight. I want to get the work out there. I want to create new forms with other artists, use the work to change the narrative. That sounds like my dreams. I'm in a studio with open windows on every wall. And as I look around, my artwork is filling this space. This studio is mine. I grab my brush and I sit my mind at ease. It's peaceful. This to me is what it truly feels like to be free. My path to freedom.
another round of applause. And now it's my pleasure to introduce another member of the Graterford diaspora, El Sawyer, an internationally known filmmaker who got his start in Graterford filming our featured artist of the evening, Spell, paint a work that now hangs in his living room just outside of Philadelphia. El has come a long way from learning film in Graterford's auditorium, and during his time, he will take a moment to tell you what the community of Graterford meant to him and his development into the amazing artist we know today, El Sawyer.
Hello, all. Sister Debbie, Brother Mike. Thank you, Akil. And let me just start off by saying, first of all, love to everybody, love to Spell straight up, but you know, everybody that spoke here. You know, Akil, I appreciate you, brother. Like, seriously, we talk. When we talk, I always tell him how great he is, how great he will be. I see it in him, and anything I can do to support that, I will. I want to say that publicly so that when he's where he's supposed to be at, he's supposed to remember who he's supposed to remember, if we understand that. A little coded message to you. But all seriousness, I you know, normally, every time I talk or anything of this nature, I always try to frame the conversation in a context of prison as being a psychological experience. We can't get away from that. Prison is a psychological, it's a trauma. It's not about being tough or weak. It's not about being smart or not. Prison, not even referring to, solitary confinement. Set that aside for a second. Being in prison greatly affects your neuroplasty, like straight up. Whether we know it or not, our brains evolve, learn, grow, reorganizes itself based off our environment and the conditions of that environment. There was a quote recently I read from a gentleman named Dr. Robert Sapolsky. He had a book called Behave, right? And the quote is, for every new world equals a new worldview equals a new brain. That's real. And the environment of prison, given the othering, calling someone an inmate, quote unquote. Shout out to Stephanie. She has T-shirts that says James Baldwin quote of nobody's an inmate. Is that the quote? Get those shirts from Stephanie right front. Shut it down. Anyways, we'll talk about that. Nobody's an inmate. The othering, the forced, learned powerlessness that's insisted on just to operate and function. All love to whoever family's here, but I don't shout out to no administration. None. I have no love for it. None. I see nothing but the worst. That place is hell. All due respect, Akil, not a shady spot either. Like, it's hell. Like, straight up. And we endured it. You survived. You came out and was able to do this. I applaud you. So much stuff that everybody's, like, we can't even, please don't ask me who I think about, right? Like, oh my God. I don't even deserve to be up here talking. Mike and Debbie should be here talking. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I should have asked permission to even talk. Like, what are we talking about? My elders, like Haroon and Chuck Africa. God. Who remembers Chuck? Can everybody raise your hand? You remember Chuck? I cried. I went out in the hallway. Anyway, so there should have been a warning label too on this. For future reference, this should start with a warning label. Because anyway, backing up. Whatever we go through in prison affects our brain. Long form. Again, you got folks in here over 40 years in the penitentiary. We're talking, come on, since babies. We're talking about affects your brain. There's not one program that identifies or treats, recommends, or even makes you aware or acknowledges the trauma of incarceration. Not one. Not one. We're left to figure it out. Figure it out. I'm 21 years home. I'm still figuring it out. I ain't gonna give you tears up here, but I'm about to. I'm still figuring it out. I went to prison, just really quick about myself, and God forbid, but just I'm framing in this conversation. I went to prison at 17 years old. I did 2 years in juvenile before that. I couldn't read. Writing was all, Came home at 25. Never had a job, none of that. When I was, a couple years after getting to Greater Fort, I was stabbed in Greater Fort. I was stabbed by my cellie in Greater Fort. A dude I thought was my folks, stabbed me while I was at Greater Fort. And I can go into details about what you got to do when things like that happen, because the last thing you want is to get shipped out from that said Goldilocks zone, if you will, from Greater Fort, just because of the proximity and access to your family and all that. I didn't think I was going to come home. I had a son at the time. My son was 3 years old. I couldn't write enough to be able to articulate my condition, who I am, and convey that to my son. I didn't have that ability to do that. Talking on the phone was expensive. I was embarrassed to call my family collect. To be a burden. I didn't want to be a burden on my family. I legit didn't think I was going to come home. My son was 3. Besides trying to articulate anything, a kid at 3 years old on the phone, that ain't really. Anyway, what'd I do? I said, there was an internal video crew, right? So, again, somebody mentioned Gary Bates earlier. Shout out to Bates. Reached out to Bates. I wormed my way on to the video crew. So in Greater Fort, there was an internal video crew. It's big VHS cameras. Guys would go around and document things inside the auditorium, things that went on inside the institution, whether it's football games, basketball games, things like that. And they, broadcasted it on an internal LAN system inside the prison. My plan was to get on the video crew, just to get my hands on the cameras, to be able to use the cameras, to be able to video myself to my son and can I pass a message to my son, who's 3 years old, right? To basically use that technology to project myself into the future, not from a position I felt like I was in at that time, but present myself to his future self. 13-year-old Aaron, right? 30-year-old Aaron. How do I do that? And I did. Thanks to Bates, right? Got me on the video crew. My whole job was only to be able to wrap wires, so I wasn't doing a whole lot on the video crew. But I was able to get on the crew, just enough to use the cameras, and clandestinely got the tapes out. I did 10 tapes. While I was on the video crew, there was a meeting that there was an artist named Lily Ye. Love Lily Ye. Lily Ye and Glenn Holston was a filmmaker. Then there's that. Lily Ye and a filmmaker named Glenn Holston was coming into the institution. So we was in a meeting with the film crew, with the video crew, and it was an artist named Lily Ye was coming into the institution, and she was going to teach classes at Greater Fort with with folks in there. Spell was one of the folks. I didn't realize that was there. All right, so Spell was one of the folks, and in the process, Glenn was documenting Lily and her work. So Lily wanted to bring a film crew, Glenn and the film crew in. The institution said, no, you can't bring the film crew in. Glenn can come, can't bring the film crew. So they told Glenn if he wanted to film, he had to use the internal video crew. Now, mind you, I'm just on the video crew just to sneak and use the cameras, just to send my little tapes home. I don't want, you know, I never met a filmmaker. I never ever aspired to some film. None of that, right? I was only, and nobody volunteered. I volunteered. That changed my life. And it wasn't the meeting of Glenn that changed my life. It was Haroon, Daoud, Shakur. It was my elders that wrapped around me, that gave me, because I didn't want to meet Glenn. Glenn's weird to me. I never met a Glenn before. Like, I don't know how to talk to Glenn. The first meeting is all exciting. After that, I'm like, cool, bro. I would rather be out in the yard. You know? I mean, again, every new world equals a new worldview equals a new brain. My brain was aligned for prison out of survival. Glenn didn't represent that. It was cool to meet him. It was a novelty. After that, homie, I'm out in the yard. If Haroon and Daoud see me go out in the yard, don't let them see you go out in the yard. Let's just do that. It's in Shakur or somebody, right? The idea was that there was times Haroon would literally go to the commissary and get a blank card. They used to sell the greeting cards, pre-stamped greeting cards. And literally it was blank. And he would write in it, thank you. And he would give it to me to send to, all I had to do was put Glenn's address on it to send to. Not only insisted that I network, but taught me the nuances of networking, how to teach, how to maintain a network is what that did for me. These folks taught me to shave, taught me everything, right? I go down the very first thing that when Glenn was teaching me, the very first thing that he taught me and very first thing that I videoed when he was teaching me, when I push record, was this painting. That painting wasn't that painting, it was just a blank painting, right? Like whatever, but like as he, I knew spell long time at that point, but never knew, and you walk by spell, anybody know spell, you walk by spells, cell, you're gonna see spells artwork, right? Like, and they catch your eye, you look. I'm not an artist. I don't know nothing about that. When I got a chance to see paint, when he's painting it and I'm filming and painting it, to sit and listen to his logic around it, his thought process that goes into this. Abuelita, this painting hung in my living room, like Akil just mentioned, hung in my living room for the better part of 15 years. This painting was a muse for me. Has been, still is, a muse for me. Not only about, so again, the conversation with Spell was not only about painting. Yeah, it looks nice. No, this is a coded message. Haroon used to talk about it all the time. Haroon said it's like putting a note, it's like a note in a bottle, but you in greater for you put it around a rock and throw it over the wall with your name and address, just to, right, dry hook. Like he like these, how do I, it's no different what I was doing with the tapes. Sending tapes home. The idea was that he would code words, code messages, his DC number, important birthdays, all this stuff out of found objects inside that institution. And I filmed him doing it. There was a quote by John Henry Clark. John Henry Clark says, we know John Henry Clark. Let's talk about it. Yes. All right. John Henry Clark quote was, "It's your duty." And I'm going to mess up this quote. Trust me on that. I'm quoting it, but it is hardly a quote. It's your duty to take all your life experiences and skills that you gain to fashion it into a weapon for liberation. That's what that is. That fueled, when I talked to Spell, that's what he was articulating. That's what fueled me to understand the mission for my work, and that's what I carry on to do now. And let me just lastly add, and this is love. It's my hope, and I had all the faith in Akil. I don't know, nobody will have it except for Stephanie. It's my hope that this archive, and you're gathering, collecting, right? Experiences, people's work, that it's fashioned into a tool of liberation and not observation. This shit ain't for looking at, it's for activity.
So I start, El, by saying that the conversations that I began to have with Gus Stadler over at the Hereford Center were all about what the men meant to me and how other people should understand them. And for me, Graterford was as much as accrediting institution as Haverford College. In so many ways, the men there created that space, but they did not create it alone. I only stand before you an artist because I used to go off the block without a pass. I used to call what they call bucking traffic. Movement, okay, I'm headed to the auditorium. I remember a guard stopped me, Scott Bright. He was a weirdo. And he said, "You can't go off the block, young buck." And I was like, "Man, I go off the block every day." It's like, "You can't go off the block." Me and him got in the words. He said he wanted to fight me. I went down and I sat down and I waited for him to fight me. And he was like, "Who the fuck is this?" It was an old head that went to Bright and said, "Not him. Not him." And that respect, that camaraderie that we had with the guards was why Graterford was what it was. So I don't say fuck the administration, because it was not just us and them. It was a little bit more complicated than that. I'd just like to introduce Julie Ehrlich, the Program Director of Presidential Initiatives and Chief of Staff at the Mellon Foundation, a lawyer by trade who has spent her career fighting for civil rights issues, including time battling sex discrimination, prison conditions, and prison misconduct. Joining her is Salim Holbrook, Archive Advisory Board member and Executive Director of the Abolitionist Law Center, a man who took the things he's learned from Graterford and applied them to build an organization that is dedicated to helping get the folks he's left behind out of prison. Salim and Julie will be coming to the stage tonight to reflect on what they've seen and heard here tonight and talk about the importance of remembering places like Graterford. Julie Ehrlich and Salim Holbrook.
Everyone, I'm Nikhil Sabal, and it's my honor to represent the people and communities of Pennsylvania's 1st Senatorial District. The fight for decarceration, and beyond that for liberation, requires all of us to take on the mantle of advocate in all areas of our lives. The fight is desperately needed here in our Commonwealth, which locks up a higher percentage of its people than almost any democratic nation on earth. As a member of the Pennsylvania legislature representing people who are incarcerated and the loved ones who care for them, I've committed my office to standing in opposition to our state's mass incarceration practices. By preserving and amplifying the voices of activists and organizers who were incarcerated at Graterford, the archive shows us our shared stake in freedom and fortifies us to stand strong for each other. I'm honored to offer introductions to 2 brilliant people who will share their reflections about the importance of this work. Robert Salim Holbrook is the Executive Director of the Abolitionist Law Center, a law project dedicated to ending race and class-based discrimination in the criminal justice system and all forms of state violence. Salim has led campaigns against death by incarceration, life without parole, solitary confinement, and state violence, and written extensively on prison abuse, social injustice, state violence, and children charged and sentenced as adults. He was released in prison in 2018 after spending over 2 decades incarcerated for an offense he was convicted of as a child offender. Salim is also a friend and a mentor, someone whose example as a writer, thinker, and organizer, and whose acute understanding of the role of the prison system in the racial capitalist world system has deeply informed my own. Julie Ehrlich is the Program Director for Presidential Initiatives and Chief of Staff at the Mellon Foundation, where she directs the Imagining Freedom Initiative. Prior to joining Mellon, Julie had an extensive career as a lawyer focusing on reproductive justice, First Amendment cases, and civil rights issues, including sex discrimination, legislative redistricting, prison conditions, and police misconduct. I hope you enjoyed this time.
Thank you, everyone, for joining. Thank you, Akil, for putting this together. Thank you, Julie, for being up here with me. And we've been having an opportunity to work together recently, so it's just great to be up here with you. Thank you to all my comrades, friends in the audience that did that time in on Cages. I've certainly led campaigns. I've certainly been a part of campaigns, but I've never done that by myself, right? Because as we used to say in the camps, no man is an island. So I also want to thank y'all because y'all really helped make this work move. I'm going to be honest with you. Akil got with me just yesterday and said I was going to be up here on this joint, right? So I really am freestyling right now to figure this out. But one of the things that I do want to share is that a lot of this work, and I'm speaking from an executive director position where literally 15 days out of the month, I'm traveling around the country, right, meeting with funders to sustain this work. And when you have a title called the Abolitionist Law Center, and your clients are Mumia Abu-Jamal, Russell Maroon Schultz, and you are very clear that we are seeking to abolish prisons, free people from prison who are serving, who have went to prison like me for some of as Ghani would say, the worst trespass a human can do is be involved in snatching someone from this world. There ain't a whole lot of foundations dumped back in that dump truck up, to give you money, right? But it also takes a personal toll because I'm gone 15 days of the month from my family, right? Funding work like the Greater For Archives is something that is very important because, see, people know who I am. People know about my work. But there are so many people on the inside whose stories, whose contributions, right, are not out here, right? They didn't slip through the cracks, as we used to say on the inside. Like those of us who were child lifers, man, we made a fast break. I remember in the auditorium at Graterford when Maroon sat me and Ghani down and was like, look, y'all going home after all these years in prison, everything we've been here through, and then looked around and seen all of us. He was like, man, this is a mass jailbreak. And that's what it was, because none of us thought that we would be here, but there's so many inside whose stories, whose testimonies, and whose contributions are not being heard. And so for funders to see the value in this type of work, to see the value in people who the state saw as beyond redemption, right? I say there's two features of the carceral state that treat human beings as disposable. One is death by incarceration, the other is solitary confinement. When you could sentence someone to spend the rest of their life in prison, die in prison, you are treating that human being as disposable. When you put someone in a cage for 23-1 for years, in some cases decades in solitary confinement, you are treating the human being as disposable, right? So for us to get those people's voices out who are contributing to ending these abuses, but also you don't even have, I tell everybody, you don't even got to be an activist. You have your story, your voice has worth. How many artists are in there? I got a friend, Hung Ray, Todd Tarselli, one of the most brilliant artists I know, right? His contribution was making artwork, man. We go down to the cell, he would do portraits, he would do sketches to send out to our family, or our families would send, remember our people would send the pictures in, and then we would take them to the artists on the block, and they'll sketch that joint and send it back out, and they'd be like, man, who's in there with you? It's like, yeah, this is what's in here, this is the talent that's in here. So for funders, and Julie, definitely gonna turn this over to you to elaborate more, to be up here on the stage with you, but to see this work, right, is important, and also to carry this work to other funders as well as me and those of us in the audience that are in this decarceral space, but even the artist space. There's so many other spaces to carry this work to that. My writings in prison, I tell people, were my SOS to the world. I was just trying to let people know I'm here. I didn't, my voice is going to be heard, and the Greater For Archive is that too. But it's more importantly that it's for people who 100 years ago whose voices are not heard now, right? And it's for the people right now whose voices and visions are not being heard.
Thanks, Salim. Yeah. Thank you. Thanks, Salim. And I want to say thank you to Akil and to all of you for, to Akil for organizing this and leading this amazing effort, and to all of you for welcoming us as your partners and supporters in this work. And so, as I've been listening tonight, I've really been struck by the power of interconnectedness, which so many of tonight's speakers, including Salim just now, touched on. And I was writing notes because basically everybody talked about that idea, and it's an idea that's core to the work that we're doing in Imagining Freedom and funding projects like this that help us all see our connectivity, see each other, and understand the linked nature of our struggles together toward justice. And, so just from tonight's conversations, I mean, Mr. Drinks, you talked about how you saw each other across difference inside Graterford. Ms. Keene talked about no prison being a local happening. In Spell's painting, I guess if you think about it, we're all in it in some way. And I've been thinking here, sitting here, really thinking and being struck by how much is possible when we act toward justice from a place of interconnectedness, and how much you all, working from this deep belief in interconnectedness and this living every day, the power of interconnectedness, how much your experiences are going to have and will and are teaching the world about how we work toward justice, and how there is so much brilliance and creativity and knowledge and power and political power that is incarcerated right now. And that power, that brilliance, that knowledge needs to be seen by a broader swath of this country and of a broader range of communities, so that those people can also be activated to work as allies toward changing how we approach harm in our societies and how we keep each other safe. So I just really want to thank you all for the work you're doing, and we at Mellon are really just honored to be able to help provide the resources so that you can do the beautiful things that you are doing and have envisioned to do. And we can't wait to watch over the next 3 years as it unfolds, and hope to be with you to celebrate the work along the way. So thank you all.
Julie, you made me think what this next election would look like if incarcerated people could vote. It might not be that close. Now I'd like to welcome B.L. Sherrill to the stage for a performance.
Yo, there we go. Hello, everybody. I want to thank y'all for having me again. When Akil gave me the call, first of all, I want to thank the Graterford Archive. Akil, thank you, Gus, Lindsay. When Akil called me and asked me if I wanted to do the performance, I said, oh, of course. I was excited, I was humbled. But when it was time for me to think about what story I wanted to tell, I had to kind of think deeply about what I wanted to say. And I started thinking about prisons opening, prisons closing, which reminded me of my mother, who was one of 33 women to open up Riverside Correctional Facility when it first opened. And she was there, and they was cleaning it up, and they was making it a living place for the rest of the residents who were going to come. And little did she know that she was keeping my bed warm because I was on my way. And I started thinking about my roommate when I got there. And she used to always say, "You're going to be a rapper, yo, you so dope. Yo, you going to be a big star." I used to be like, "What? Get out of here." And I used to rap her to sleep every night. She'd wake up 4 in the morning. "Hey, Mo, spit that verse for me, that one." And I would rap all night, all day. And one day, she got into it with the guards. She was my best friend, and they took her down to the hole. She was gone for like 9 months. And when I saw her again, she didn't even know who I was. From being doped up off meds, Thorazine, Cinequine, pulled her hair out. And it was so traumatic for me that I can't even imagine how it was for her to see somebody who used to be my best friend that didn't even recognize me. And I decided that that was the story that I wanted to tell tonight. So I'm going to perform this first song, also standing in solidarity with Ezra Bowman, who's been incarcerated for 49 years for a crime that he maintains his innocence of, and after an untreated neck injury led to a surgery, it resulted in him coming out paralyzed. And I'm calling for a compassionate release for Mr. Bowman. And this song, Promise You This, is in dedication to him and my roommate, Talia. And I could be a little rough, so I apologize, but my life is rough. I promise you this, scariest shit that ever exists is being in prison while physically sick. And if you got life to them, you already dead, so hopefully it'll be quick. I see my cellie start taking the meds, shit fucked me up when she seen her forget. In a year's time, she was slobbering, spit, playing the shit. Promise you still, scariest shit that I seen on the hill. Being in prison and mentally ill, where they kill your will. Day after day, through pill after pill. You go bananas and slip on a pill. Stuck in the slammer, can't win a appeal. Can't even feel, so you really can't heal. Work the Camp Hill, ill. The infirmary, smelling like blood and murder scene. Mixed with neglect, no sense of respect. We dying from no sense of urgency. We die from deliberate indifference, standard procedures, routine surgery. We dying from constantly being denied these services purposely. Until we are illness terminally. This shit really murder in first degree. Screaming in vain. They don't believe in our pain. Like we ain't bleeding the same. Serving our time, equate to deserving to die. Freedom was seen in the grave. Wish they was free at the gate. Only way they can escape. Secret remains is failure to secret remains. I promise you this. Scariest shit that ever exists. Being in prison while physically sick. And if you got life to them, you already dead. Hopefully it'll be quick. I see my cellie start taking the meds. Shit fucked me up when she seen to forget. And it gets time she was slobbering, spit, playing the shit. Promise you still. Scariest shit that I seen on the hill. Being in prison and mentally ill, where they kill your will. Day after day, you pill like a pill. You go bananas and slip on a pill. Stuck in the slammer, can't win a pill. Can't even feel, so you really can't heal. Or the Camp Hill, ill. Promise you this, ladies and gentlemen. Steven, I don't know how they work, but can you please turn my mic up if you can? This next song, I told you guys that my mom was keeping my bed warm, right? So by the time I was 18 years old, I was serving 12 years for a police-involved shooting. I got shot a couple times. I lived through it. I'm extremely blessed. But I wrote this song. This is my innermost thoughts to myself. I had to decide if I was going to make a change out of my life. And I decided that I was. And it led to a very uncomfortable conversation with me about breaking generational curses and, you know, trying to change my family's lineage from here on down. And I'm in the process of doing that now. So this song is called Restricted Movement. And y'all are in the Restricted Movement sessions right now, by the way. Where's Steven?
Will beats.
I'm tired. I'm tired. Very tired. Making the same decisions. Wanting to be better.
Restricted movement.
Not knowing where to begin. I don't know if anybody can relate to that.
I can't think it.
But they say we keep getting hurt. Deserted murk, there's a race when we rather watch LA baddies than birth of a nation. But blood of some brothers on trees curses this nation. Misplaced souls, we lost in searching this nation. Shit, I'm Nat Turner, I'm strapped with a black burner. Mass murder against backstabbers and back turners. They snatch culture, dark in the night. Cat burglars, doing that since they thought the earth was a flat surface. Then they cast dispersions, claim that we lack purpose. You a nigga if you feeding to that. Facts, churches, I put that on a stack of old Bibles in black churches.
That's why they lack the courage to work and they snatch purses. Slaves to white fashion, deserting the black merchants. The grass growth emerges, disguises the crafty serpents. Snakes, study slither, they whispering, come hither. Make the prison your home and then make your children the system. Yeah, I can't take it, I can't fake it, hope I make it. Shit, I hope I make it. I can't take it, I can't fake it, hope I make it. Shit, that's why I'm praying. I can't take it, I can't fake it, hope I make it. God, I hope I make it. They say that I won't make it. That's what they saying. And that's why I'm praying. That's why I'm praying.
I can't take it anymore.
The stigma of a convict is like a fucking object that's lodged in your esophagus, and it just won't come out of it. Choking from barely coping. Broken from self-corrosion. Throat is closing when it's open, no air will go inside of it. The stigma of a felon is like a fucking nail in my coffin, buried alive. Coughing as I'm inhaling the soil of the struggle, turmoil, of the hustle, it boils. And it bubbles as often as I'm exhaling these drugs. I've been selling since I was around 11. My mom been smoking crack since 87. Well, she's sober now, but her children got left destined. Headed in the wrong direction since adolescence. And we grown now, but every decision, I have to question myself. Every assignment in life, I had a lesson to death. Every time I get it right, I gotta go to the left. Afraid of failure or afraid of success. They kill my self-esteem, get the witness of murder. When I tried to be legitimate earner, and they act like the only thing I'm good for is flipping a burger. Flipping a bird, go flip a burger. But this just cycle with a system's my rival, but I'm my biggest enemy. They know I'm gonna fail, I make them right by my tendencies. They closing libraries, building more penitentiaries, investing in my future. They think I'm where I'm meant to be. They think I'm where I'm meant to be.
Blue Jays.
This ain't where I'm meant to be.
Carter.
Everybody can't go.
Hairball. Newell. Mark.
It's restricted movement, ladies and gentlemen. So another thing I was thinking about when I was figuring out my set list for the show, I thought about the Attica brothers. We stand on the shoulders of forefathers in the social justice reform movement, and we're here, and we're in this nice building, and it's all these funders here, and it's all these people here, and this is great, but people fucking died for this shit. People died. And just in that scenario, it's just 43 people died. And I got an old head, his name is Carlos Roche, and he's an Attica survivor. And in the 50th anniversary, I wrote a song for him, and we did a play. And it was all so beautiful, but I just didn't feel like I could do this set without paying respects to Carlos Roche and the Attica brothers with the song Attica Energy. And that's what I present to y'all next. Also, there's a rare, never before seen footage that's going to be in the back of some of those brothers. So rest in peace, Big Black, and shout out Carlos, I love you. I'm ready, Steve.
Direction of New York's Attica State Prison came to a tragic end this morning. Negotiations gave way to force, and at least 37 men died. 9 guards and 28 prisoners, making this the bloodiest prison incident the country has seen in 4 decades.
Meet us in the yard. We got the guards, including the Sarge. Only armed with our hearts, but we need to talk. We got the mans. Blood on our hands, last resort of our plan. Gotta meet us in the yard. We got the guards, including the Sarge. Only armed with our hearts, but we need to talk. We got the mans. Blood on our hands, last resort of our plan. First thing we need is amnesty for this calamity. Can you guarantee that we'll make it home to our families? And humanity is the lens in which you branded me. Expecting different results, insanity, crazy. We demand adequate medical, I seen several. Residents died due to negligence, it's unethical. We demanding in the slave labor, we professionals. Working electrical, but not a dime of the revenue. We demanding in the political persecution. The 13th time they amended the Constitution, strictly for institutions. Keep our necks in these nooses, yeah. Slow death in its execution, allow us to form a union. If productive citizens is the goal, you gotta prove it then. You got the mans, gotta take a stand. Shame on this country once again for forcing my hand, but meet us in the yard. We got the guards, including the Sarge, only armed with our hearts, but we need to talk. We got the mans, blood on our hands, last resort of our plan. Meet us in the yard. We got the guards, including the Sarge, only armed with our hearts, but we need to talk. We got the mans, blood on our hands, last resort of our plan. We demand legal representation to see parole, and every one of them seats should be filled through a vote. We demand accountability, COs want control, bringing problems into work from their homes to be prone to be bound, laying prone in the hole on the stone where it's cold. Yeah, system overthrown. We need more diversity in the hierarchy. Black and brown people in authority that I can see. This is more reality. All white men reigning over the society, normalize the proprieties. Am I developing traits that align with oppressors? Am I enveloped in hate, society's reflection? Damn, it's like we need to revolt. We need to vote. We need to do both. It's like a boat needing a hole. Cause we done went from trees with the rope to knees to the throat. And then this road taking its toll. They gotta meet us in the yard. We got the guards, including the Sarge, only armed with our hearts. And we need to talk. We got the mans, blood on our hands, last resort of our plan. Gotta meet us in the yard. We got the guards, including the Sarge, only armed with our hearts. And we need to talk. We got the mans, blood on our hands, last resort of our plan. Yeah. Meet us in the yard. Yeah. Meet us in the yard. Yeah.
Through William M. Hunter, attorney at law.
Gotta meet us in the yard. Meet us in the yard. Meet us in the yard. Meet us in the yard.
We got slave labor here. We want to allow all New York State prisoners to be politically active without intimidation or society. We want true religious sanctity. We all political prisoners trapped in the economic trap. 5 years.
Those who are tired of the race, exploitation, and demonization of black people in this country. We have developed here what is called a revolutionary conscience. And we're going to exercise our consciousness in reality.
We want a judicial shield and a continuing restraining order until the litigation is finally ended, without any reprisal or brutality against any inmate of this institution.
Attica Energy, ladies and gentlemen. And I'm not gonna leave you guys just on like some super like down note. So I just want to say, as you guys already know, I'm co-executive director of an organization called Freer Records, and we're the first nonprofit record label in the country for prison-impacted musicians. And tonight, I want to play y'all a video from one of my bands. They're called The Masses. And the reason why I'm so excited to play y'all this video tonight is because the band leader came all the way from South Carolina to come to this show to see me perform. After serving 22 years, he's now out, and he's my development and operational assistant. Ahmed, thank you so much for coming. And this is his band. And I went all the way down to South Carolina. We went down there, we recorded him, and he was great. And, you know, he's now, you know, always love on the team. Thank you so much for coming. Welcome home. And this is his band's video, The Masses, The Movement. I'm going to close out my show with my band. Thank y'all so much. Y'all have a good night.
Everybody up. Yo, everybody. Ha. The masses, boy. Many a tongue one sound. The masses. masses. Mr. Magnificence of the masses. Mighty Morphosis masses. Oration of the masses. Masters of ceremony, my killer armies, the masses. And we black out like the 9 Apostle Paul did in Damascus. The masses. Movement. Skull shots to contusion. The bruise in the skull candy. Cotton candy, carnival cruise ship. Jack Johnson, get Charles Bronson. I ain't talking about blackish, it's the black fist on lift like Kwame Ture Pan. African is the masses. Let it sink in till we in sync. Garbage expose you in sync. Clickety clack on the track like a little tink tink. And I think what you thought is dumb. So here we come to cut it out of your mouth and slap you in the mouth with your own tongue.
The masses, boy, many a tongue, one sound. The masses, boy, many a tongue come down.
My mastery is microphone manipulation, verbal elevation, eye to eye with the constellations. We street bodies like probation, a severe agitation. If your skills are way too basic, scratch your lines or erase it. That's the test that you ain't acing. My advice, get evasive. The only thing around here, bruh, the doctors and the patients. I push doctors' limitations. If you're overcompensating, evict your soul body vacant. Keep talking about caking and I'll get to duct taping. That's how I held it together when y'all fakers got the faking. You flaking and mistaken, bodies broken and misshapen. You don't want no real smoke, that's why you stay vaping. Keeping it gorilla, so they say that I'm aping. The world was yours, now the masses here to take it. We taking, yeah. The masses, boy, many a tongue, one sound. The masses, boy, many a tongue come down. Masses, movement, voice of the voices, soldiers of fortune, poor and unfortunate. The masses, boy, the real McCoy, reaching y'all like George, like Sigmund Freud. I put on shows, organizing noise for the core. Shy, weak, and the paranoid, the people voice who wanna press, so they had no choice, eat the score. Rob, trap, script, a horde, that's the rotten core. A thought putting us by force, trying to keep us poor. So watch this movement open doors with little girls and boys. Trap decide, wanting more. The masses came together for a beautiful cause. We a couple of different genres, but we are who we are. Fury gave us this platform, we targeting all. We the voiceless for the struggle abroad. Time is like the blow by, it might seem like it crawls, but it's passing you by quickly like Kobe with the ball. Seize the moment, don't hesitate like a car when it's stalled. Motivation for the masses, the name says it all. Bless the masses, movements, voice of the voiceless, soldiers of fortune, the poor and unfortunate. The masses, movement, voice of the voiceless, soldiers of fortune, the poor and unfortunate. The masses, movement, voice of the voiceless, soldiers of fortune, the poor and unfortunate. The masses, movement, voice of the voiceless, soldiers of fortune, the poor and unfortunate. The masses, movement, voice of the voiceless, soldiers of fortune, the poor and unfortunate. The masses, without interrupt the infinite spectrum of the masses. The masses. The masses.
1971, very important, year of Attica, also the year Graterford transferred to black leadership. My closing remarks will run way over where we were supposed to be right now, so I'd just like to thank a couple of people. We'd like to thank the Mellon Foundation once again. We'd like to thank the Graterford Archive team, Gus Stadler, Eric Hartman, Lindsay Rexon, Sarah Horowitz, Wynn Eakins, who led a lovely panel earlier. Callie Silverman, who did a lot of the heavy lifting for this program. Elizabeth Webb, who brought in our collaborator Spell and has been an amazing collaborator. We'd also like to thank and acknowledge some folks here from Haverford. Nikki Young, Haverford's Vice President of Institutional Equity and Access, Provost Linda Strong-Leak, and President Wendy Raymond, who are here with us tonight. We'd also like to acknowledge the work of Arts in a Changing America, which has been an amazing supporter of Spell and a visionary in leading our thinking of how to show up equitably for incarcerated people. We'd also like to thank our advisory board members, Raymond Ziegler, Carrie Shakabuna Marshall, Don Ike Jones, Stephanie King, Terrell Woolfolk, Donnell Nell Drinks, Robert Holbrook, B.L. Sherrill, Luis Gonzalez, Margaret Robertson, Felix Rosado, Kempis Songster, and my partner, Christina Reyes, who has catered and hosted our first gatherings leading up to this work. Love you, baby. We'd also like to announce that Don Ike and I will be taking part in an upcoming exhibition by Larry Williams, a photographer working to highlight the work of formerly incarcerated photographers. The exhibition will take place at Tilt Institute for the Contemporary Image here in Philadelphia. Please stop by tomorrow for the opening from 6 to 9. The exhibition will be on view from September 12th to December 31st. I guess that's all, folks. I'm sorry. There's a reception right outside. I'd like to invite you all out. Can we get the Graded for Archive team to come up? We're going to do a team photo really quickly. And all...
All prisoners. Just
Oh, okay.
Tell you how I feel right now. Hey, tomorrow may never come. For you or me, life is